race.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's just like trouble. He's not on second and change.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever it is you are watching from. Welcome back to the Penguin RC Simcar Grand Am Gt3 series here for round 7 of this season out at Sandown International Raceway. I'm your commentator here today, Hamish Munro, alongside Brad Dalton for the first time this season. We're bringing you all the action through sight and sound here on JP Broadcasting once again. Brad, welcome to Simcar. I know you're not as adverse as Jim has been the last couple of weeks with me in the booth, but we're at my home track, which I'm very excited about. I mentioned my excitement 2 weeks ago to Jim of how excited I am for this track because it's very, very difficult, especially in GT cars. But first of all, are you excited to be here? And secondly, how was your Thanksgiving last week?
Yeah, good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Sandown is a track that looks like a lot of fun. It's a track that, well, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't know a lot about, as tends to be my knowledge with the Australian tracks and the British tracks because, well, I'm a bloody American, so that's just how things go. Thanksgiving wasn't too bad. I got to eat, I don't actually like turkey, so I end up eating ham, but baked ham is really nice, so it wasn't too bad. Thanks for asking, man.
I am the same as you, Brad. I'm much more of a ham preferer than a turkey preferer. We will have either or at Christmas, and I'll go straight for ham instead of going for turkey. But I hope everyone out there watching had a good Thanksgiving last week. Of course, we had a week off for Thanksgiving, but we're back. This is our second last round of the season. We've got one to go next week out at Road Atlanta, which should be a great race. Obviously, these cars are very diverse. Road Atlanta, of course, Petit Le Mans, and other events that happen there as well. But Sandown tonight, GTs don't get to race here that often in Australia, Brad. It's normally the Australian GT Championship, the races here, which I think is once or twice a year. And these drivers have been thrown in at the complete deep end at this circuit. It's incredibly difficult. It's 3.1 Ks. It's a very, very fast lap. It's just over a minute length, about 1 minute and 7 on average. Hot track temps though, and it's fast and it's furious. It's very, very difficult for these drivers, but we're into qualifying at the moment. They've been rolling around for a couple of laps already. Michael Gonzalez, who's rocketing down the main straight, is currently top of the timing sheets with a 107.722, which in practice he got a 7.7, so he's matched what he's done in practice, but they're finding it difficult to really get these times down as much as possible. The real onus on this track, which GT cars absolutely hate, is you have to attack the curbs. You have to ride the curbs to get as much pace out of this circuit. GT cars don't like curbs, so it's a real handful for these drivers at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game of give and take here. We've seen that through practice. We're seeing it here at the start of qualifying. You just need to be very comfortable in the car you're driving. You need to really know how to drive it and how to make it work. It's something that I tend to see on Sundays in the UK GR86 Cup. You have to be very, very aggressive in the GR86, and it sounds weird to compare a GT3 to a GR86, but they share a lot of similarities, and they don't like curves, but you still have to know how to drive them, and it's something that pretty much whoever gets through today and is the winner at the end of it all is going to be whoever is able to tackle those curbs the best and really utilize them to their advantage.
I think one of the benefits for some of these corners as we watch Michael come through 2 and 3, you watch him, he is attacking the curbs just slightly, not as much as what you would do in an Australian supercar, for example, which can ride the curbs more, but the difference is these cars have got a lot more aero on them, so they can actually handle corners a little bit better. It's a fast-paced run, though, up here towards turn 6 at the top of Dandenong Road. Heavy braking zone, you're getting it down to probably 5th or 4th in the run down the hill, and you're just trying to tightly get through those curbs as much as possible. Get down the box as quickly as possible at the bottom of the hill. And in these last few corners, Brad, I mentioned it to you before the show started, the final hairpin on this track before the technical final corner, you come out on exit right on the pit entry. So drivers are going to have to be so careful. Those yellow cones, that is the pit limit spot. You've got about 100 meters or so before you have to get the pit limiter on. If you are right on the tail of somebody through that final corner and they decide they want to go into pits, you could very, very easily run into the back of them and cause a massive accident.
Yeah, I mentioned it before too when we were talking about it. It reminds me to a degree of Watkins Glen, except for Watkins Glen, it's all the way at the corner entry, not the corner exit. And you tend to see, drivers take a wide line to avoid. There's no option to do that here that I can see. It is literally you come out and you can go straight in the pits, or you need to keep going around to get back on the racing line. It's going to be real interesting to see how the drivers handle that here in a race condition. Here in qualifying, nobody tends to, really have an issue with that. I don't see anybody having issues with their, final corner exits through. But when you get all of these drivers together on track, I just know that we're going to see some bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Yeah, we almost definitely will. At this stage in the championship, we come into this round, Blake Reynolds has currently got a 52-point lead over Michael Gonzalez after a poor round last week at Le Mans, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, at Le Mans for Michael. So tonight, he needs to have a strong round. He needs to hope that Blake does not gel well with this circuit. But with Reynolds in P2 in qualifying, he is finding his footing and he's finding himself able just to stay there at the front of the field at this stage. For the AMs, well, it's pretty much a 2-horse race as well. Carson Quint, P1 in the championship, 453 points. Marvel Mofta, 6 points off the back of him on 447. Jeff Johnson is a mathematical chance at this stage on 313, but he would need an absolute barn burner of a race tonight, and he's not in the field at this stage. So that would almost say that he's out of the title race, and well, for Mofta and Quint, it's pretty much between those two leading into Road Atlanta next week.
Yeah, 2 rounds to go here, and the big key for the championship for me is going to be just maximizing points if you're a driver. And it's all about just getting things right today. This is a track that, again, I don't have a lot of experience with as a driver. It's a track I've heard of. It's a track I knew about, but it's not one that, I can say I've ran laps on. If I'm a driver in a championship position, I would have been driving the absolute daylights out of this track since the last round and just keeping everything going. Because as we've seen, and as anyone who is a race fan knows, one race can swing a title fight one way or the other, and you do not want to go into Road Atlanta with any questions about how that final round needs to go.
I suppose one of the benefits, right, we've come off of Le Mans 2 weeks ago, track that's well known for GT racing. GTs go there nearly every single season, whether it's through IMSA or endurance or whatever. So a lot of these drivers have a lot of laps at Le Mans. 2 weeks later, you're coming to a track which you would have barely any practice at, barely any experience at. So if they were smart about it, they would have spent the 2 weeks, the extra week gap that they would have had, practicing the life out of this circuit, learning as much as they can about this circuit and how they can best attack this circuit when racing here tonight. Because ideally with this track, consistency is going to help you. Lap time is going to help you as well. But consistency is the key. Keeping it out of the wall, keeping it on the straight and narrow, that is what is most important to be successful here at Sandown.
I hope that's what they've done. However, you can't guarantee anything because, of course, again, the Thanksgiving holiday in the mix, and something that, I talk about a lot is that real life likes to happen. So hopefully the drivers have all found time to practice in. Everybody seems to be on a fairly close playing field right now in terms of lap times. A 107.699 is our top time, and you jump just 1.5 seconds back to get to P14 out of our 16 cars that I see in the servers. So, I mean, that's not an unrealistic, spread of the field when you look at the number of cars out there. I don't think the field spread for lap time is that bad, and we're still continuing to see people to improve with just 30 seconds to go.
So we have 30 seconds till the end of qualifying. Being that it, regular round process of a heat and then a feature, they'll get cut off at the 15. So this is the final attempt for Blake Reynolds. He's on a personal best in the middle sector. Doesn't go any better in the final sector, which has not seen him improve his lap time. So he will start at least P2 on the road here tonight. Michael Gonzalez looks to have locked out the pole time, as no one is really in contention to beat that 107.699 from Gonzalez. So the front row looks to be locked out at this stage. Qualifying is done and dusted. They've been cut off, as hopefully, Brad, we don't get them cutting themselves off on track tonight, because it's very, very easy to get mixed up in the wrong way with cars around this track. It's short, it's sharp, it's tight, and it's a difficult place to go racing. But starting here this evening for our racing grid, round 7 of the season, of course, Michael Gonzalez will start pole position, and I don't want it on class, we want it overall. Keep on making that mistake, Brad, it's absolutely horrible. Michael Gonzalez starts pole ahead of Blake Reynolds on the front row of the grid. Nate Stewart, Anthony Flores will start on the second row. Justin Nasir will start inside the top 5. Josh Stultz will start pole for the AMs inside the top 6 here this evening. Roman Ratu, Ray Kingsbury for the top 8 positions, with Karsten Quint P2 for the AMs, P9 on the road. Paul Binkalajczyk makes up the top 10. Brian Son, John Ebersol for the 6th row of the grid. We then move back to Marwan Mofta, Jason Lynn, and then Joshua Suxi and Cody Cosgrove. Cosgrove not setting a lap time here in qualifying for Solpec Precision Racing. So the Canadian will start at the very back of the field, as Gonzalez and Reynolds, the championship contenders, will start on the front row. Full lap rolling start here this evening, Brad. And it's going to... this track, I think, is one that can separate the men from the boys. It's really a circuit that tests your limits, tests your skills. I mean, this is my second Sandown broadcast of the week. I've got a 500-kilometre broadcast this weekend, 161 laps. That's a race that's going to test drivers. But tonight, across these 2 races, it's going to be like, they're going to feel like they're in an exam, pretty much, lap after lap. And you're getting the worst person you could have in the booth, who will criticize every single lap that you run, being that this is my local circuit. So I hope they do me and the track proud here tonight. Flores has not made the grid, though, in P4, Brad. So he will have to start out of pit lane. Could be a smart strategy, though, because if these guys are not that comfortable around this track, we could see a lot of danger and a lot of death at turn 1, 2, 3, or 4, and Flores could really make up those spots a lot easier, or get back up to P4 while staying out of trouble as well.
I don't know what it is with Australian tracks being so difficult. Y'all have some of the most difficult tracks I can think of, but they are so much fun to drive, but they quite literally do what you said and separate men from boys. And it is something that you can't just jump on a track and drive it. They're not the Daytona road courses. They're not the Watkins Glens. They're not the Road Americas that you can jump on and get up to speed relatively quick. They take effort, they take time, they take skill. And yeah, if I'm a driver, I probably wouldn't watch the broadcast after the fact, because I have a feeling that the Australian Power Hour is not going to be happy with something somewhere.
I will call drivers out for their mistakes when lapping around this circuit. Don't you worry about that, Brad. You mentioned we have tough tracks. If you don't know about Ipswich race circuit, it's not a tough track. It's basically a horseshoe. It's not very hard at all. But there are other circuits here which are incredibly difficult, such as the Bend, which is coming onto iRacing, which has, I think, about 7 or 8 different layouts on it. There's Sydney Motorsport Park, which is coming onto the service as well as the Adelaide Street circuit, which is very difficult too. So we like to keep it difficult, but it tests drivers, and it really proves that who deserves a race seat more than anyone in real racing if they struggle at some of these tracks.
Yeah, definitely. And has the simple characteristics of tracks that you need to be comfortable with. It very well shows the fundamentals of racing that you have down. It's going to be interesting to see how the drivers handle it here, how their fundamentals are feeling today, and just see how they do things here. Of course, we're getting set up for this first heat here, Hamish. We're coming around, and take it away.
Well, it's going to be a slow run up towards the start-finish line. Gonzalez and Reynolds have gone. It's green flag racing at Sandown for round 7. The first sprint begins, 15 minutes, and Gonzalez is trying to cover the line as quickly as possible down towards turn 1. Hard under brakes into the first corner. Need to be careful of wide runs. Need to be careful of hugging the curb on the outside. You can very easily lose the rear end. They made it through clean this time by, but do they keep it clean through 2 and 3? They don't. Ray Kingsbury's hard into the wall, and it was almost guaranteed to happen with such a pack of cars alongside each other.
A very, very hard hit in the wall there, too. And that is going to just absolutely ruin this heat, unfortunately, as we go through. Up in the front, it is Blake Reynolds, Nate Stewart, and Justin Nasir that are just holding on. And watch how the cars hit the curbs here early on as they jump through. Right now, Michael Gonzalez is just trying to run away with it. And we have some more side-by-side action here as the Porsche and the McLarens continue to battle through. And it is going to be Porsche coming ahead at the moment.
It's really seemed to be that the McLaren was the car of choice from the start of the season. Of course, season started and, well, pretty much the McLaren had come out. So a lot of drivers decided to run with the new car, and others went for the Porsche, which was strong thanks to the BOP at the time. There have been some fans of the Mustang and the Corvette throughout the period of this season. We've only had one Merc in the field, being Jason Lynn at this stage, but Gonzalez still leads. Reynolds P2, Stewart has stayed with him. Nasir as well inside the top 4. Ratu, though, needs to be careful not to drop too much gap. You do not want to give up any moments of pace as Stewart's gone into the wall at turn 4 and he's dropping all the way to the back of the field. And that is how quickly it can happen here, Brad. Such a short circuit, such a short lap time. One mistake and you're at the back of the field.
Yeah, just running over a minute lap times here, so plenty of laps will come in, but turn 4 seems to be the big thing, and it's just a 90-degree left-hander. You wouldn't think it would be too difficult, but when you put it in combination here, coming out of turns 2 and 3, which are just back-to-back chicanes, hard on the brakes into turn 4, and the rear end just snaps out.
He was actually very lucky not to hit the wall, but he did well to hold brakes, did well just to keep the car where it was, but that is as easy as it can get to lose the car at this track. We mentioned it'll test drivers, it'll separate the men from the boys. They have to hit their marks lap after lap. There is no room for error. It is minimal, an absolute millimeters amounts of desperation or millimeters amounts of mistake can lead to absolute disaster at this track. It's deceivingly difficult, Brad. It looks simple on paper, but you don't realize how difficult it is until you cut a lap here and you realize the little nuances that are needed to get pace out of the car, but also to keep the lap time clean.
Yeah, and the thing with the GT3 cars, again, as you've mentioned, this has kind of got all of the right kryptonite factors for the GT3s. There's grass right off the edge of the track, no sort of runoff opportunity or breathing room. There's very, very defined curbs that you have to avoid. It's a lot of hard braking zones and 90-degree corners that come at you very quick, left to rights, right to lefts, and it just sort of all adds up as that thing that GT3 cars don't like. They don't like this sort of very technically challenged track, just as we see there. They like the car tends to like more flowing circuits that have more flows, more up and downs. They don't tend to like this style of track for GT3. It just adds to the fun, though. Let's be honest. It just adds to all the fun here as we continue around and we continue to watch battles come through. Leaders are separated by 7.5 tenths. Mikolajic is half a second off P4 there. And then we've got this nice little battle in the middle for P8.
Yeah, there's these, it often happens at this track. These little packs will start to form, whether it's packs of 2 or 3 or even 4 cars at times as well. And it's how willing you are to take space on your competitors. But there are only so many concrete passing opportunities at this track. The bottom of Dandenong Road, if you can get the car lined up to run up the inside of the next car, yes, they need to give you the room. can get the move done. Also into turn 1, if you get the run out of this final corner, you can set yourself up for turn 1. It's a patient game, and you've got to sit there and you've got to be as patient as possible. It's like sitting in the emergency room for 4 hours for one test result. That's the kind of patience you need at this circuit. Ratu's going to cover the inside line at turn 1 from Mikolajczyk. So he's doing well to actually defend at this stage, but that's another thing as well, Brad. You've got to be careful with how much space you take when you're defending, because you know, one little millimetre too tight to the corner, it's going to force you out too wide. If you catch that concrete on the other side of the curb, your rear wheels are just going to spin round and you're going to end up on the wall.
Yeah, you really, really have to be on your P's and Q's. And, you know, as you said it earlier, this is a deceptively difficult track in all real accounts of the word. This is a track that I like, though. I do like it, and I have commentated this track before, but it was a couple of years ago. So it's a track that is, you know, it just sets everything right. The car set everything right here. Is we ride on board with Paul Mikolajczyk, who's trying to get the run on Romain Rateau here side by side. They're going to come down the front stretch, deep down towards turn 1, still side by side. Still side by side. They're going to hold it there, and who is braver on the brakes here? And it is going to be the McLaren there to the inside, holding the brakes, gets it through there. The Porsche looks, and the McLaren defends. So you now have Paul Mikolajczyk up into P4.
Yeah, he did that. He did well to actually run and move up. He managed to get the car alongside before Roman could cover. That set him up for turn 1. That is a real clear cut and just beautiful move into turn 1 for Paul Mikolajczyk. At the front of the field, though, Reynolds has started to find some pace, and he started to hook it onto the back of Michael Gonzalez for P1 and P2. One thing we failed to mention as well, Brad, you have to be careful down the hill. If you cut that right-hand sort of chicane part of the downhill, you will get an incredibly difficult slowdown to commit to. And you can't do it on the racing line, so as soon as you get it, you've got to try and wipe off as much of it as you can into the hairpin. Otherwise, you're carrying it all the way around through turn 10, 11, and 12 at the final part of the lap.
Yeah, and the final part of the lap is really the slowest part of the lap, so it's a killer if you have to serve that time there, because you're not getting as much credit here. Mikolajczyk and Rateau are swapping positions again. Back and forth, they're going side by side. They continue through. We're on board with Rateau here, and Mikolajczyk is just right in for company. They're giving each other just enough breathing room there through the chicanes, and now it is again Mikolajczyk there that is going to cut through. But notice that they've let Stolz catch up. Cosgrove is only about a second and a quarter back, and then Quintson and Ebersol right there in the mix as well. This is going to be where you have to be careful battling, because if you focus too much on battling with the car behind you or ahead of you, you're going to just open up the floodgates, and then your 1-car battle is going to turn into like an 8-car battle.
Cosgrove's done well off this race start. He's already up 9 spots off the back of the field. But if you recall, he didn't set a qualifying lap. So he's done well to come from P16 all the way up to P7 at this stage. Seems to be gelling with the track at the moment, but it's going to be a tough task to get up towards Mikolajczyk and Rateau. But the way that they're battling, with 7 minutes to go, he may end up getting there in the end. But it's Rateau shoots out onto the inside of Mikolajczyk for turn 1. He wants to get the job done. They have to give the space. Mikolajczyk runs it out wide. He's smart enough this lap not to go for it too wide into 2 and 3. It's a set of corners that you just can't do it, Brad, and it was audacious to do it on the last lap, but he's learned from the mistake, and he's just kept it smart, controlled the controllable, gotten back in behind Rateau, and he'll line himself up for a move once again at the next run around towards turn 1.
As we come down through here, this is going to be through turns 6, 7, 8, 9, and I wouldn't think that you're going to look for a move here. As you said, turn 1 really the next opportunity. Just follow along, but hey, you never know. Could be a little bit of a wiggle out of that number 23 Porsche. Could be a little bit better of an exit there for that number 77 McLaren. And you never know, Josh Stolz is right there in the background in that number 99 McLaren. And if both these drivers have a moment, then he could be just right in the mix to get something moving through. And you just have to watch out. Down the main straight we go again, right on the back here. A little bit of slipstream coming in. Not a lot, but just enough that it could help make a difference. We're going to go into turn 1. Are we thinking brave on the brakes here, pull an Aussie move and be last of the late breakers? Not yet, but we are going to use the curb, help get the turn in through turn 2 and turn 3, get through there, and now again, hard left-hander, turn 4, keep the traction down and just follow it along.
So one thing I'm noticing a lot of these drivers not doing, the ideal entry for turn 1, you want to hug that right-hand side wall. None of them are going across that yellow line to hug the wall on the entry to the corner. They're all trying to hang on the actual line of the circuit, which you don't get an off-track for hugging the wall. It's not considered an off-track. So it's interesting that they haven't learned that little nuance. And again, it's those nuances we mentioned, the little nuances of finding that little extra bit of lap time or that little bit of extra comfortability, I suppose we could say, into turn 1. It's a small thing, but it just helps your entry to the corner. It kind of squares it off a little bit better. It gets the car just that little bit more perched on the turn-in. So none of them are doing it at this stage. If they watch this back and then they think, oh, I'll try that in practice, you know, maybe it'll work out better for them. But the battle's continuing on at this point for P4 on the road. Ritu's now taken that from Mikolajic once again. It's becoming a 4-car battle with Stalls and Cosgrove hot on their heels with less than 5 minutes to run in this race. Nasir is all on his own. Reynolds has broken away from him by 6.2 seconds, who's still hot on the heels of Michael Gonzalez, but there's not much Gonzalez can do to make up those 52 points that he gave up at Le Mans, because right now he's only gaining a couple of points on Reynolds, and Reynolds is doing everything he can just to stay in this championship fight. Realistically, he could lose to Gonzalez in tonight's 2 races, next week's 2 races, and still win the title just by staying right on the back of the McLaren.
Yeah, for Reynolds right now, it is just a case of just stick to the back. I don't even know if I'm in Reynolds' shoes, if I'm going for the pass. And I mean, realistically, he's going to. He's a racing driver, and that's a little bit of a matter of pride and a little bit of a matter of want to. But, you know, he doesn't have to push his luck if he doesn't want to. But also, when the doors open like that, sometimes you just have to, you know, make the move work. And this is a good run from Reynolds. Into turn 4 we go, and as we come out, loses a little bit of time there, but it's still right on the back.
Doesn't matter how good your run is through 2 and 3, it can very easily get hindered at 4 if either you take the wrong line or you've got someone right in front of you and they brake straight on the apex. It ruins the run completely and you're at a dead stop on the exit of the corner onto the straight. As we come down towards Dandenong Road, sends it up the inside of Michael Gonzalez, but he runs it way wide into the kitty litter. A big mistake from Reynolds, audacious as it was. But he's learnt now that you just can't do it if you're carrying too much pace into that corner. Gonzalez did the right thing. He stayed on his racing line there, Brad. He braked at the right point, made sure that he made the corner, because I think he knew that Reynolds wasn't going to do it, braking so late at the bottom of the hill. As Ritu is now under attack from Josh Stultz through turn 12 they come. And the battle is continuing here for P4, but it's allowing Mikolajic to break away with only 2 minutes and 15 seconds left to run, arguably probably 3 laps left to go.
That was between Gonzalez and Reynolds. For a second, if Reynolds could have got the brakes under control there on that Corvette, that would have been a beautiful, beautiful dive there. That would have been a very, very appropriate Australian dive, I'll say. And it would have looked really, really nice. Good battle here in the back of the field for 14th. Kingsbury and Lynn here going side by side for a moment. The sole AMG getting knocked down to P15 against a Porsche as we go through and along. But yeah, for the moment there with Gonzalez and Reynolds, it was a brave move. I don't think he really meant to do that. I have a feeling that was just a slight miss on the brake pedal there. And then for Rato, Mikolajic, and Scholes, this battle is really heated up. Mikolajic getting past Rato and dropping him down into P5. And now Stoles, of course, now looking to just put some pressure, looking for a top 5 finish here for the AM driver. Would be a very good result here for the Heat.
Brad, this as well, we covered the last sort of minute and 10 seconds of this race. Your mic went very robotic then, so I don't know what's happening with your connection, number one, but we probably, yeah, just sort of let you know in case there's something that's happened or whatever, but just something to keep an ear out or an eye out for. We'll keep thinking about it, or keep an ear on it to make sure it doesn't happen again, obviously. But at this stage, Gonzalez he's got the lead well in hand now. I mean, 1.2 seconds that Reynolds gave up on Gonzo for that move at the bottom of the hill. It was a simple mistake, but it happens. I mean, these guys are good friends. Reynolds, notably at Road America, hit Gonzalez, took him out, but he actually waited for him to fix up his, to get back on track, and actually gave Gonzalez the win back instead of just going past him, because he didn't want to win it that way. 20 seconds left on the clock. It'll be one more lap for Gonzalez and Reynolds and the rest of the field. So they're going to get 14 laps out of this circuit here this evening for the first race. The second race, being 45 minutes, I think should probably go roughly for 40 laps, I want to say, because the longer it goes on, obviously they're running 7 to 8 seconds above the minute. They're not going to get the exact 45 laps out of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be a good run to see how many laps they can pull out there. And weird for the mic issues, I don't see anything on my side, so if it keeps happening, let me know. I can do some troubleshooting, but we'll keep an eye on that here for Reynolds. You know, the one dive, I don't know if it was on purpose or maybe a little desperation there. The number 16 Porsche, or 18 Porsche there of Cosgrove, just tapped the wall a bit on the exit of 4, running a bit wide, trying to find a little bit more time, but I think this battle will probably settle itself out as well.
Yeah, it appears to be settling out as they come towards the end of race number 1. Through the final couple of corners for Marco Gonzalez. A Penguin RC simulation across the line. He takes the win in race number 1. Reynolds will come home P2. Justin Nasir will make it a double Penguin RC podium as he comes home in P3 on the road. Paul Mikolajczyk makes it 3 Penguin RC cars in the top 5. Ratu will survive inside the top 5 to Josh Stultz, who wins it for the AMs in race number 1. Cosgrove gets up 9 spots into P7, and the Austin Matthews of Solpec Precision Racing performs once again. Quint, Son, Eversol for your top 10. Stewart recovered to P11 after the spin at turn 4. Mofta, Flores, Kingsbury, Lynn and Suxi makes up the rest of the field in this race, as Mr. Gonzalez takes another win for himself this season, garners himself a couple of points over Reynolds, but it's not enough. He needs Reynolds to end up at the back of the field for race 2 as we get into the warm-up session now. So importantly for race 2, it was a top 8 reverse grid for this next race when we get into it here, Brad. So if we look at our results from race 1, Gonzalez P1, Reynolds, Nasir for your podium, Mikolajczyk, Ratu, Stalls, Cosgrove and Quint. So importantly, it'll be an all-Canadian front row of the grid as Quint and Cosgrove will start P1 and P2. Keep an eye on Cosgrove. He had the pace in that race to make up 9 spots. He could be an early challenger to the race win here in race 2, starting on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and sometimes reverse grids really, really play to a driver in that way. So it'll be interesting to see how this race 2 shapes up. Pace is there for everyone again, and sometimes, you got to have the elbows out as well. So we'll see how the defense can play. I'm really going to keep my eye on Reynolds and Gonzalez, though, as I think those two will be the ones that will, be trying to fight their way through the field. Elbows are going to be out for them, and they're going to be looking to get all the way back up to the lead there from 8 and 7, where they'll start respectively.
Yeah, they're really going to have to try and work hard to get through the field, although they have got 45 minutes to do it. In races previous, in those 45-minute races, it's probably been about 10 minutes into the race, and they're already at the front of the field. I don't see a world in which they make it to the front of the field in 10 minutes at this track, just based on the fact of there's 2 really, really good passing opportunities, and Reynolds may not be so eager to do it at turn 9, which he tried last race and ended up in the sand. So realistically for Reynolds, there's probably only 1 passing opportunity, and it's at turn 1, or hope that drivers ahead of you end up in the wall at 2, 3 or 4, and you just get an easy position off of them. But you also don't want to get caught in the crosswires of that moment happening, which we saw could have happened very easily in race 1 when Kingsbury ended up in the wall at turn 3. Everyone else was very lucky that his car actually darted to what is the left-hand side of track, and they could just hang on the racing line on the right on the curb and avoid his car. But it could have ended very, very badly, and could have been a very, very spectacular crash for us to watch, but a horrible one to be involved in as a driver.
Yeah, this track isn't very wide, so if something does happen on the track, you really don't get much space to avoid it or to get around it, which is, again, it seems to be a Australian a popular Australian track sort of characteristic that when you look at them, they're not that wide in terms of their setup. And if something happens, it can just really ruin everyone's day. It's something that, you learn to adapt with, but especially the lack of runoff in most areas, the lack of sort of, what you see at traditional tracks. You see a little bit more pavement, a little bit more room for a driver to hang it a little wide without penalty. None of that here. If you go a little bit offline, a little bit to the curb, you're going in grass. Down the straightaway, you're going straight into a wall if you're not on the racing line. And in certain curves, you may have just a little bit of gravel, and you better hope that stops you, because if it doesn't, you're just meeting a tire barrier for fun at that point.
So they're actually quite lucky they don't have a standing start. I'll give you a bit of backstory on this. So my dad used to race in the 90s, and he started a reverse grid race on pole position here. He was very excited about starting on pole. So excited, in fact, he missed his braking marker into turn 1. And he ended up in the kitty litter on the right-hand side of track and into the wall about 100 meters away from the actual corner. So it's very easy to get caught out in the moment at this track. Very easy to make a mistake and end up wide, or end up in the kitty litter or in the grass, or even in the wall as well. One characteristic of this track as well is there's no runoff on the inside of the circuit, because the track goes around a horse racing track. So there's no runoff to your inside. It's all outside, and not every corner has runoff, and not every corner has as much runoff as other corners around this track. So there are certain spots that are relatively known as danger zones for a reason, because there is nowhere to go. This track, it goes around a horse racing circuit. On one side of the track, there's runoff. On the other side, well, you're right next to an actual road, so you're hard against a wall if you run wide, especially up here at 2 and 3, because you come out pretty much onto the back straight in line with an actual road on the outside of the circuit.
Yeah, it's a very unique sort of setup, and I love it. I really do like it. It also adds a nice view. As someone who is from Kentucky, which is the horse racing capital of the world, I like that there's a racetrack around a horse track. It combines two of the best things, racing and horses.
Well, the residents around this track, they complain that there's a racetrack here, but you know what? You bought a house near a racetrack, so don't complain, as Josh Stultz has gone for a wild ride into turn 2 and 3. But yeah, I find it amazing that people will buy a house near a racetrack and then complain about the racetrack.
Yeah, that's someone thought they knew what they were signing up for, and then they didn't, and I have no sympathy for them, and the fact that we are losing really good racetracks to that makes me wish that wasn't a thing, because it doesn't make sense.
It really doesn't. It really, really does not make sense as to why you would, number one, buy the house there, and number two, then complain about it. So, but regardless, that's their prerogative and their life. But starting grid, though, for race 2 will be as follows. Carsten Coop will start pole position for the AMs and overall alongside Cody Cosgrove in P2. Josh Stultz, row number 2, will start on the second row of the grid with Paul Mikulajczyk and Justin Nasir for your top 6. Blake Reynolds, Michael Gonzalez for the end of the reverse top 8 from race number 1. And then it will be the rest of the grid starting how they finish the first race. So Brian Son, John Ebersol make up your top 10. Nate Stewart, Marwan Mofta for your 6th row of the grid, with Anthony Flores, Ray Kingsbury, Jason Lynn and Joshua Suxi at the back of the field. So 16 cars to go racing around Sandown. We saw a little bit of carnage. It was only self-inflicted carnage, though, early in the last race, Brad. They then decided to take it a little bit easier and just get into their rhythm. That's what they're going to have to do tonight. It's often what happens in this series, is we'll probably get about 10 minutes of hard racing at the start. We'll then have roughly 20 to 25 minutes of, we'll call it the lull period, where everyone's just going through the motions, trying to make it to the end of the race. And then the final 10 or 15 minutes, that's when they'll really start to battle hard to get home and to try and make up any positions that they possibly can towards the checkered flag.
Yeah, that's kind of, it sort of reminds me of like a pseudo endurance race. So, we've seen, those 24-hour races, those 8-hour races, the 4-hour races, however long it might be. You get that hard racing up front, kind of scavenge what you can. You get that middle race lull where it's just hold it together, keep it going. And then the last few minutes, it's finish or wreck. Either way, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but anyways, you know what I mean. So, especially after seeing that 15-minute heat, seeing that side-by-side is possible, seeing that drivers are willing and able to take that side-by-side and be comfortable with it, I think we're going to see a little bit closer racing, and we're going to see a little bit more of a challenge for some people. Passing does not look as simple here as you would think it is. So if Carson Quint here and Cody Cosgrove can hold that front row together, they can really set the precedent for this race, set the pace, and then all they've got to do is just stay on the racing line and watch turn one, and they'll be pretty okay for a while.
Yeah, they're going to have to work hard. Honestly, they're going to have to work hard, not only to defend, but actually keep themselves on track, keep themselves in check, and keep themselves just on the road. It's one of the most difficult parts of this circuit. We mentioned there's millimeters of mistake possible that can happen at this track. You have not got any room for error at all. You have to hit your marks and you have to keep it clean. 45 minutes of racing around here. We should see roughly 42 to 44 laps, depending on their average pace in the whole field. But up towards the final corner, as we get ready to go once again, all Solpec front row of the grid. Quint and Cosgrove, the maple-blooded warriors of Solpec on the front row. We are underway at Sandown once again. 45 minutes of racing to come your way as they all spread down towards turn one. Ratu's trying to go for a move early. Cosgrove's already given up a spot to Stultz. Needs to be careful not to give it up to Ratu as well as they get tangled through one. Lucky not to make contact as they come up towards 2 and 3. But we're going to keep an eye if any contact happens, as there's already a car crossing turn 2. They've kept it clean this time by, but how long can they keep it clean for as Mikolajic goes into the wall at 4 and Reynolds has been spun round on the back straight?
That was a big moment there out of 4. That was, I'd have to go back and see that to tell exactly how that started. But for Blake Reynolds, you just go ahead and drop back. That is, I mean, that's Blake Reynolds' race. Going to be a very uphill challenge here all the way down into P15. Up front, Carson Quint has done a very good job. Josh Stoll's in second. Cody Cosgrove still in third. Not the best run off the line. And then we saw all of the McLarens there of Gonzalez, Nasir, and Stewart just absolutely elbows out going.
This is what happened to Reynolds off the exit of 4. Went for the move up the inside of one of the Penguin RC cars. I believe it was Mikolajic. Oh, they kind of just got caught up in front of each other. So Son had gone around in the background. But it appeared that Reynolds and Mikolajic kind of got hooked up together. Let's try and get a better angle on this just quickly. And just watch as it progressed through turn 4. So dives up the inside of Mikolajic. Mikolajic gives it the room. Hooks it up though on the grass into the wall. Goes, oh, he tried to cover and then straight in the side of him and around he goes.
It's hard to tell if Reynolds came right or if Mikolajic went left. And it's hard to tell if Mikolajic had any damage that was preventing him from going back right there. So that's going to be an interesting one to look at and see. Look at this run from Josh Stolz there, and Cody Cosgrove and Carson Quint are going to go side by side. Carson Quint going to lose another place now, lose another place to Justin Nasir. Hard racing here early on, and it is going to result in a new leader here of Josh Stolz.
He's taken the lead through that replay period. Cosgrove now back up into P2. Quint has given up a mammoth amount of positions. They're 4 wide down the straight towards turn 1. Flores, Ratu, I think Quint and Ebersol are all involved in this. Oh my God, be careful through 1, please. Somehow they survive. I did mention that I didn't think Gonzalez and Reynolds would be able to get up the front by 10 minutes into this race, but I did also asterisk that with if there is dramas, they will make up moves easily. So Gonzalez has gone up 5 spots, but that was through all of the carnage at turn 4 on lap 1 with Son, Mikolajic and Reynolds. So that's 3 positions that he gained off the start already, and now he's managed to get his way through natural progression up into P3 and hot on the heels of Cosgrove.
Someone to watch out for is Nate Stewart, up 6 places here on the day and is continuing to look very solid here. A little bit of a front end damage there. Not sure where that's from. I have a feeling that that could be from some argy-bargy going on here early in the first few laps, but things are settling in now. Cosgrove Gonzalez again right there, bumper to bumper as they go. See headlights flashing from Stewart, so Stewart clearly has somewhere to be. Gonzalez up the inside here to Cosgrove. Cosgrove's going to give the space and into turn 1. Gonzalez up 6 places now, up into 2nd place, and is leading this pack of cars. Stoll's out 1.1 seconds in the lead.
I don't know how long that lead's going to last, though. Gonzalez has had the pace over the field all day in this race here this evening, but Cosgrove's done well. He's had some pace as well, remember. He was up 9 spots in race 1. That's what got him P2. Stewart was unlucky. He had the spin at 4 in race 1. That's what dropped him down the order. He's up 6 spots, though, recovered to P5 after being at the back of the field in race 1. So this is a great recovery from Stewart. He's had some phenomenal pace. He was in P3 before he spun round in race 1. So realistically, this is where he should have been in race 1 if not for that spin, Brad. So he's right where he wants to be. He's right where he needs to be. He's with Nasir, who we know has also got some pace. And this should be a hot battle for the majority of the proceedings here this evening.
That it will, and I'm really interested to see how this battle proceeds, because it's just continuing to go and go and go and go, and again looking for some sort of a move. And I was wondering where that front end damage comes from. Seems like he's just got more corner speed than anyone and keeps tapping the back here as we go side by side. Cosgrove and Nasir, and it is going to be Nasir with a little bit of a wiggle. Cosgrove to the outside, Nasir to the inside. Over the curb they go, and it's still Cosgrove trying to defend that position as much as possible. And it's Nate Stewart that has that front end damage that I mentioned a second ago. And again, still seems to have a lot of corner entry speed there for Stewart, but just can't capitalize. Now we go side by side behind that with Artois and Cosgrove and Flores here as they go and losing some positions.
I think Cosgrove may have had a slowdown for whatever reason. He's actually just dropped a heap of positions off the exit of 4 there, but he really... I mean, I was wincing at him and this scene coming through there, banging doors. I was thinking, oh no, one of them's going to get spun or they're both going to end up in the wall. They somehow came out relatively unscathed. Couple of bruises, couple of cuts, but they look okay. But what it's allowed is it's allowed Gonzalez to break away from this pack and chase down Stills on his own. As Nasir is now under pressure from Stewart. Suxi has had a problem in the background, but he's kept it going at a minor off track, it seems. Mofta's already making up spots as well. But this whole train goes all the way from Nasir, I think all the way back to Cody. Cosgrove has gone round at turn 4.
And Cosgrove trying to get that car back straight. Let's check out what happened here. Cosgrove hard on the brakes through. A little bit of curb, a little bit of curb, a little bit more curb. And there was a checkup ahead.
Yeah, it was a big checkup from Ratu, and that's what caused him to go round. That's how easy it can happen. He's already back in the pits. Mikolajic's in the pits too. Ebersol's run it way wide at turn 9. He's trying to head towards Melbourne instead of staying on this race circuit, and he's already dropped some spots too. So some minor mistakes happening here, Brad. But Stills, who's now given up the lead to Gonzalez, just wants to hang with him, and he needs to mitigate those mistakes if he wants to stay in P2. But he wants to go for P1. He's willing to battle for this thing. He's not giving it up.
Yeah, look at him side by side here into turn 1. Plenty of racing room being given here, but Gonzalez with the better line out, and now it's going to be outside to inside to outside, and Stolz very wisely is just going to settle in back into 2nd place and hold on to it here. Out of 4 we go. A little bit wider there from Nasir, but nothing too bad. You can tell some of the drivers are willing to run turn 4 a little bit wider than others, and that gets them very close to the wall, but it's not bad at all as they continue through. Stewart and Nasir side by side, and it is going to be Stewart with that little bit damaged front end of that McLaren that's up into P3 now, and it's a McLaren 1, 2, 3, 4 on the day, and believe it or not, we're only 7, almost 8 minutes in.
Yep, lap 7 at this stage. 8 minutes have run in this race as we lead up to lap 8 thus far. We mentioned top 4 all McLarens, then the next 3 are all Porsches. And it's Marlon Mofta in the Corvette in P8 at this stage. Reynolds is on the comeback train at this stage. He's in P12 after being spun round on the back straight. but he's all on his own. So he's got the work to do here, Brad. He's 13.5 seconds off the back of John Ebersol. He has to hope that through natural progression and from mistakes of other cars that he just makes up the time and tries to get something out of race 2, because if he finishes back there, championship fight is back on between Gonzalez and him.
Yeah, and for Reynolds, I mean, he's looking good. Looking at his last lap time, a 108.6 to a 109.3 for John Ebersol. So he's got pace, he's got it there, but again, we're running on that 45-minute timer, so he's got to continue to keep that consistency and that speed up through this entire race. Catch, pass, and if there's one thing I like to say in racing, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, and sometimes people don't let you pass as easy as you want to. They'll throw the elbows out and they'll battle you until the end, and sometimes that can reset your progress yet again if you end up in another little bit of an incident.
As Ray Kingsbury has come into pit lane, it seems, so he's come in maybe fixing something on that car quite possibly. Just to do the quick maths on this for a second. So the last lap for Reynolds was a 108.65. Ebersol was a 109.25. So that means that he's gaining... Oh, he's done a 108.5 this lap, actually. So he's probably gaining, what, 0.7 of a lap? 13 seconds he has to gain. So it's not 13 laps. Probably maybe 15 laps that he has to catch and then try and get past John Ebersol. 15 laps, that's going to take up probably, I want to say 17 minutes of this race. That gets them to 10 minutes to go. That's going to be a tough task.
It's going to be a very, very tough task, but it's not impossible. It's just hard. And it's really going to... Really different. It's going to really show Reynolds' sort of consistency and skill as a GT3 driver, honestly, and overall just the nerve and what's the word I'm looking for? The mental bearing of him as a driver to be back in that position, know the odds, know it's against you, and still try to overcome it.
I think the positive is if there are mistakes being made from drivers, and depending on how long they go on the stint, if there's mistakes from drivers and they end up off the road, they could be free positions in the games, because it proves, number one, how easily you can drop position and drop time early in a race if you make a mistake. But it also proves that if someone else makes a mistake, they can easily drop that time as well. So if he just keeps his lap times up, keeps his pace up, if he can maybe cut that down to a second per lap that he's gaining on Ebersol, that'll gain him probably 2 laps on the time it will take him to catch him. And if he can keep the pace up, that should mean he should be able to get past Ebersol as well. But again, if it takes him a full lap or multiple laps, it's going to hurt him. And it's really going to cause him to drop points critically on Gonzalez, but also drop time on cars ahead that he could possibly be catching as well.
Yeah, that's going to be... He's got to get very lucky and very set up. The gap, even if we've been talking about it, is down to 10.2 seconds here as we go. Ebersol putting very good pressure on Lynn to go through. Hard on the brakes goes Lynn. Ebersol on the brakes as well, but makes it stick through turn 1, uses the curb to his advantage, but the inside becomes the outside. They switch back a little bit, and, well, Lynn playing the Houdini tricks, but Ebersol able to see past it, gets ahead into P9. Reynolds now 9 seconds back just from that little exchange. So for Reynolds, it's all about Lynn and Ebersol. Just keep fighting, keep reeling them back in. But again, as they fight, they're opening up a gap to Quint. So it's a big accordion effect that is not playing in his favor at all for Reynolds' goal here to get back up to the front. And speaking of up front, Gonzalez has pulled out a 2-second gap on Stewart. I have no idea where that came from.
He's just got some pace, apparently. I think it's also come down to the fact that Stewart had to try and get past Stalls as well. One little thing we have to also think about. So obviously this rubber banding effect is happening. Last lap for Reynolds was 1.6 seconds faster than Ebersol. So that was his biggest gain on a lap thus far. So that's another thing as well. If he can run those sorts of laps, it'll dramatically cut down the time it takes him to catch and then try and get past Lynn and Ebersol. You mentioned he wants them to keep fighting, but he also doesn't want them to try and hold him up when he catches up to them as well. It's okay if they keep fighting and they build gap to the car ahead of them, as long as Reynolds isn't building gap to the car ahead of them. It's a giant rubber band effect, but you don't want to get hit in the crossfire of it ricocheting back at you.
Hand over fist, Reynolds is the fastest car on track right now, and it's not even really a close contest. The leaders up front are running 108.7s, 108.8s, 108.9s. I even see 109s in the mid-pack, and it's a 108.4 last lap for Reynolds. So, I mean, it's hands over fist that Reynolds is the fastest car. The issue is this is a 3-kilometer, 1.9-mile circuit. This is a very, very fast lap in these GT3s. So it's just all about keep that consistency, keep that speed up for going just time after time after time, as Kingsbury is magically adiosed and back into the pit lane there. Wonder if he had some sort of an incident.
Yeah, he did. I caught the end of it. So he had gone off the road at turn 6 at the top end of Dandenong Road. So, ooh, he was in behind one of the other Porsches. I have to wonder if he may have actually either blown his engine or had an issue, because he's pulled it up and then had to just tow straight back to pit lane. So that's unfortunate there for Mr. Kingsbury as Ebersol and Lynn continue their battle. If we look back, Reynolds should just be coming around the corner. He is indeed. So that's the gap. He is in the mirrors of Jason Lynn. So we'll keep an eye on Reynolds and how he chases them down. Gonzalez, though, has started to gap Nate Stewart even further. It's now out to 2.3 seconds. Nassia in P3, Flores P4, Ratu now makes it an all-pro top 5. Stultz is into pit lane, has to get it slowed up before the control line. It's a tight entry. It's almost as tight as Long Beach's pit entry. That is the trouble that these drivers are in when coming into pit lane, and it's one of the difficulties of racing around Sandown. And we haven't seen it occur yet, Brad, because I don't think we've actually had the opportunity to have someone in a tight contested battle where someone's then decided to go into pit lane. The one we'll need to keep an eye on is if Flores decides to go in and Ratu decides to stay out, that Ratu doesn't get caught out by that and then ends up going up the rear of Flores' car.
I think it's interesting that Stolz went through the pits there, because Stolz had been running really well and then just magically dropped down the grid. So I don't know what started that. I don't know if that's a spin damage, what that might be that put Stolz down through. Suxy now to the pit lane as well. We've had 3 drivers out of this race in the first 15 minutes, 30 minutes left to go here.
Yeah, so
this
it appears that Suxy was the one who was in that moment with Kingsbury, so he's carrying damage. Oh, ran the curb a little bit too long at 4, and that's what spun him round. So that'd be why he entered pit lane, most likely carrying some damage on that Porker.
Unfortunate to see that there. Rateau continuing to chase down Flores as they continue along and down, still following things through. The Porsches playing nicely with each other here early on, and I think we're hitting that sort of middle third of the race that we talked about, Hamish, that you hit that little, you know, everyone's very on their best behavior, their P's and Q's, and they're just sort of at this point trying to just run the race, trying to just keep things going and trying to just make sure that, you know, no harm, no foul, and get the car closer to the end.
Yeah, you mentioned it's that pseudo endurance race mentality of keep it clean before the final part of the race. That's when you then risk it, you know, tooth and nail. That's when you try and push to get positions done. We don't normally have the lull in the 15-minute race because there's not time for it. It's 15 minutes. You've got to try and make up spots. This one, you've got time to keep it clean and then kind of hope and pray and rely on other cars making mistakes to get positions done outside of your battle pack. One thing that I'm noticing, though, is Flores, who was last season's AM champion, fresh into the pros this season, is actually starting to gap Roman Ratu here in P4. But Ratu draws him back in towards the first couple of corners. But that mistake from Ratu, the rear lock through first corner, that has cost him a mammoth amount of time. It's now well out and over 1.5 seconds. And that's out of tow range on Flores. So he needs to try and gain now in the corners if Ratu wants to get the tow back, because you need that tow if you hope to make moves down at Dandenong Road and down at Turn 1.
Yeah, and that is how quickly this track can change things. With such a short track, one small moment into turn one can just open things up and put you so far on the back foot that you might as well just be in a different zip code as they go along here. Quint still trying to chase down Mafta, and that gap is about half a second here. The field very spread out as things stand here. 18 minutes in, 17 laps in, so we're on track for about that 40 lap number, I would say, here as they go along. But again, one small moment can really, really cost you, so you have to be smooth, consistent all the way through. But I have a feeling that for some of these drivers, that's easier said than done, and as they get near the end, they're going to start losing pace here, especially up in the mid-pack here. I do want to point out, yet again, Blake Reynolds, 108.3, Jason Lynn with a 110.0. So Blake Reynolds now to a second away from Lynn, and we'll see how quickly this pass can be done.
So we've had a question in the chat from Jason Brooks. Is this iRacing? Yes, it is. And what track is this? It is Sandown out in Australia, in Victoria. About an hour outside of Melbourne. So this is Sandown International Raceway. It's a very, very difficult circuit. It's one of my two local circuits. The other local one is Phillip Island. I'm pretty much an hour away from both, Brad, so I get some great racing if I want to go watch it. But yes, this is Sandown in Victoria. It's on the iRacing service. This is on iRacing as Reynolds gets the job done at Dandenong Road, Brad. So he got the move done at the corner that he made the mistake on Gonzalez in race one, but I think Lynn was smart enough there just to give it to him. He wasn't going to make him brake too late to get the job done. He knows he's giving up 1.7 seconds each lap. He's not going to try and hold up Reynolds because that'll hurt both of them.
Yeah, Lynn didn't even try to hold up Reynolds because Reynolds' lap time was within a tenth of his last lap time. So I think in that case, that's a little bit of Reynolds kind of knew that he could get to the inside there and learn that a little bit from race one. And then for Lynn, it was just a case of, this isn't my fight, just let him go. It's the equivalent of what you see, in F1 when you watch a Haas battle the, one of the two Red Bulls. And you kind of see hey, that's not my fight, just let him by and live to fight another day here. So that is exactly what that was. But now Reynolds needs to keep that pace up again because the next driver up in the field is Eversole, 3.5 seconds up. Meanwhile, you still have Quint and Mafta that are continuing to battle here. Half a second the gap, and, well, it's a little bit less of a battle and a little more of a game of follow the leader right now and try to put the pressure on, kind of force a mistake.
Well, these are both the drivers in the AM Championship battle, of course. Quint is currently leading that championship battle, and he doesn't want to give up too many points to Mafta because they came into this round with around about a 6-point gap between them, so they want to try and keep it tightly contested between each other. Jason Brooks in the chat, looks like a small and tight track. It is, it's small, it's 3.2 Ks or 1.9 miles. Lap time in these cars is roughly a 1:08 on average. And yeah, it's 12 corners, 2 long straights, and some, you've got to attack curves around here, and GTs hate curves. It's pretty much the bane of a GT's existence is this track. So they've been thrown at the deep end before they race at Road Atlanta next week, which suits these cars a bit better, and in which these drivers will most likely be a lot more comfortable, being that next week's a US-based circuit, and they're all North American-based drivers apart from row number 2. So, it's... I love it, being that it's my home circuit, and I love that they're being thrown at the deep end, and out of all the Australian tracks they could have chosen, this is probably the best one, because Bathurst obviously gets raced in GTs with a 12-hour. Phillip Island's good for racing, but this is a lot more difficult than Phillip Island, and you never go racing at Winton in GTs because it's way too tight, and there's probably one passing opportunity across the whole circuit. So this is probably the best choice they could have made for the fun factor of going racing, Brad.
Yeah, it's such a fun-looking track. It's one that, honestly, I said I have commentated this once, and it was supercars here, so it's a very Australian track. I said that at the top of the broadcast, that this has all of those Australian characteristics that people tend to like out of the tracks that tend to get a lot of attention through. And we watch here as Mafta, Quint, and now Rateau, are battling it out here. But this is a track that demands very, very strong fundamentals. It demands that you be comfortable with the car. It demands that you understand how to be uncomfortable with the car and still be fast. It's something that, honestly, I'm going to say Blake Reynolds is showing every single millimeter of practice, of skill, of comfort with this, as we see here Mofta looking for a pass on Rateau down the main straight, going side by side, and who will be the last of the late breakers? Well, I have a feeling that it's going to be the car on the inside here, as Mofta does get ahead even before the corner.
Yeah, I think Rateau was smart there, just gave him the position back, allowed him ahead of him and keep this battle going between the three of them. Doesn't want to end up crossed up between them all. We've got Ray Kingsbury in the chat with us. He's saying that Sandown took place at the street course in the season calendar this go-around. I can appreciate that, Ray, because I love Sandown, and it's a track that I think undeservingly is underused a lot on iRacing. I think it should be used a lot more from a lot of different car types. Maybe not GTPs. It's probably a bit too short for GTPs. And yeah, Ray saying it was fun until he broke his car. So unfortunately for Ray, he did break it at the end of the back straight. He looks to be out of this race. Jace Brooks saying, what's the best GT3 car around here? It's short, it's sharp, and every car other than the Merc in this session is a rear-engine or mid-engine car. I would say, Brad, I'd say probably the most well-rounded GT car's probably the Ferrari, since Class D races it, so maybe go for the Fez.
I would agree with that. I would say the most challenging one, even though kind of looking from the outside, you would say it's the Porsche would probably be best. But here's the thing with the Porsche is as the fuel load that's a slide from Mofta, comes back in, has contact with Rateau as they go, and now Quint's going to come through. Wow, and you can see the light flash from Rateau. He's not happy with that at all, how that went down, and Mofta's just going to kind of try to sneak away without too much of a problem.
Yeah. One thing I've also thought about as well is since front engine GTs like curbs more, maybe go for the BMW or the Merc. Because rear engine or mid engine do not like curbs, and to get the most lap time out of this track, you have to attack the curbs. So, you know, if you wanna have fun, go for the rear engine. If you want to try and send it, go for a front engine GT car. So yeah, it's.
I would second the BMW. Not saying I'm a BMW fangirl, however, I will argue that the BMW is probably the best GT3 for beginners to learn and for seasoned drivers to push to the limits comfortably.
Yeah, I would say the BMW and the Fez. I mean, for front engine BMW, but for rear engine probably the Fez is the best for a beginner. Just because they have it at such a low level on iRacing. So.
And it's the most stable and the most simple to really put together. And the setups for pretty much every track just tend to be comfortable and fast naturally. You can tweak them and make them even faster if you're willing to give up the comfort, but you can get pretty simple lap times and pretty good lap times, honestly, just running it how it is.
I just noticed that Mofta ran it wide at turn 9. Luckily for him, though, Rateau did the exact same. He followed him out of sympathy, it seems. We have 13 and a half minutes. Oh, sorry, no, not 15. That's what I'm saying. We have just under 20 minutes to go in this race, so we're just past the halfway point here, Brad. At this moment in time, Gonzalez leads. Stewart and Nasir inside the top 3. Then Flores and Mofta inside the 5. Mofta also currently leading the AMs, with Quint, his championship rival, hot on his heels. And look who's there. Blake Reynolds, the silent assassin as ever, making his way back through the field. And you'd have to think that maybe his teammate Quint may let him go and hope that Reynolds pulls him forward past Rateau and Mofta.
Yeah, and Reynolds just very, again, you said it, silent assassin, just right there in the back, just sneaking up, getting going, and just making sure to be right there in the mix when he needs to be here. And we're coming up on about 17 minutes to go at the top of the minute here. Reynolds very quickly with that pass, hard on the brake, sells it in, and Quint's going to look for a little bit of a fight back there, but I don't think much one can be given there. Reynolds very quick, gets it through. Again, Reynolds shows all of that just very technical comfort that you expect out of a GT3 driver here around this track. All of the things that we've pointed out through this broadcast that are challenging for this car, Reynolds just has them under control, and it's just kind of like, this is just a stroll in the park. This is just me walking the dog, whatever you want to call it, as we go through. And, well, I think this will be the biggest challenge for Reynolds here of the day.
Yeah, it definitely will be trying to get past Ratu and Mofta, who are in a hot battle inside the top 5. This might be as far as what Reynolds, or as far as Reynolds goes in this race, I think, here, Brad. I mean, to get past these guys and then to actually catch Flores and get past him, to catch Nasir and get past him, to catch Stewart, and I don't think he's going to be able to catch Gonzalez at this stage. I think it's going to be tough, I think, for Reynolds to get back up to the very top of the timing tower. But a top 5, if he could get that done, would be a massive comeback after ending up at the back of the field at the end of lap 1 and cutting down the amount of points that he could be losing here to Gonzalez in the championship lead.
This is going to be the first lap since Reynolds went on this hard charge that he's slower than Michael Gonzalez. And it's only by a 10th. But it's still slower. So Reynolds desperately needs to clear these two here, get up into the top 5, and then just, not even qualifying laps. We need hot lap after hot lap after hot lap.
Yeah, he needs to. He probably needs to try. If he wants to catch Gonzalez, he has to probably run half a second faster than him every single lap. So he probably just needs to try and get up to Flores as quickly as possible, get past him as quickly as possible, get past Nasir, get past Stewart. But the problem now is he has to try and get past Ratu and Mofta, and he has to send it at Dandenong Road on Ratu, gets the job done. And now it's up to him to get past Marwan Mofta. I suspect a little licking of the stamp and sending it at turn 1 from Reynolds possibly, if he has the run out of turn 12 here, Brad. Does he line it up? I don't know if he's close enough on Mofta, but he may just be willing to send it.
Oh, he's going to send it. Is he going to send it or is he going to send it? I think he's going to send it. Let's watch here. Down the main straight we go. Looks inside. He's thinking about putting a nose in and doesn't. Is going to opt to follow through. He's really liking that send, though, down on the back of the track there into T9. He's really liking that moment. So I think he might hold on for that.
Yeah, he might try and send it at Dandenong Road once again. Just prove that he can actually get the overtake done at the bottom of the hill. He's right hot on the heels now of Mofta. He won't go for it at the top of the hill, you wouldn't think, because side by side through turn 6 just does not work. He hangs it in behind him. Is he going to go for it under brakes at turn 9? He's not. He's going to be patient and he's going to be weary of going for it at that stage. So he may try and get the run out of the final corner for turn 1, but he wants it round the outside at turn 10. Is Mofta going to let him have it? He cuts the chicane. Sorry, cuts the curb. Reynolds gets the job done. Mofta cracks under the pressure. And Ratu's now going to get past him as well as we rocket down towards turn 1. Reynolds has gotten the job done. He's trying to cover on Ratu. Mofta drops back to P7, who's now under pressure from Quint. As Ratu looks to send it at 1. No, not quite far enough up.
Yeah, Reynolds needs to pull a gap desperately here because now Quint is coming in the mix as well to make this a 4-car battle. Mofta, though, you said it, cracking under pressure. Mofta had the opportunity to really stamp this race down for how it could end and just not able to hold off the very fast, precise driver that is Blake Reynolds. Amazing job from Blake Reynolds, and already has a half-second gap here before we can even hit the back half of the circuit. Continuing through, we hop on board here and just watch him absolutely send it. Now Reynolds needs to be very clean, very precise, as I just said he was, and he needs to not prove me wrong here and needs to just get away from these 3 and start closing that gap to Flores very fast.
At this stage, Reynolds is P5. He's got 8 seconds to catch Anthony Flores at the moment. Can he do it in the last 13 and a half minutes or 12 and a half minutes? It's going to be a tough run for him to get the job done here, Brad. He has to fight hard to get up to P4. It's probably going to be as far up as he's going to get. because 12 minutes to get up to P3 even, that's going to be a task and a half.
I don't think he's even going to get Flores into P4 because he's not pulling gap on Rateau, Mafta, and Quint. He's still there. He's gained a 10th since this time last lap. And again, these laps are just a minute 7. So he's not gaining enough time to really make a considerable difference here. He's there, he's putting in pace, but 1/10 here, 2/10 here. He needs to start pulling out those half-second laps as Mafta went well off in the background.
He did. He went way wide. He's cracked under pressure again to Quint. So now Quint gets up into P7, P1 for his class at this stage. Reynolds leads the way for this little 4-car battle pack, but now it's turned into a 1v1 between Reynolds and Rateau for P5. 7.2 seconds to get up to Anthony Flores. I don't know if he can do it with only 11 minutes to go here, Brad. It's going to be a task and a half.
Last lap, 108.195. Considering that his best lap this entire race was a 108.132. I mean, Blake Reynolds has heard the call and he said, okay, you want qualifying laps? You want hot laps? You want time attack? Let's do it. And is absolutely dumping the throttle here. So now the gap, 6.9 seconds. Continue to watch that come down here. If you're Flores, you need to just open things up a little bit. But again, trying to just make this car last to the end here. And Flores' last lap, 108.7, his fastest lap of 108.5. So the big thing for Flores is if Reynolds gets to the back of you, how wide is a Porsche 911 GT3? And how wide is this track? And you need those two numbers to be the exact same theoretically as we go through this race. We're coming down to 10 minutes to go. It's going to be close.
Look at that in the background. Blake Reynolds. He is so far in the mirror of Flores, but he's gotten the gap down to 6 seconds after one lap. So Flores just has to hit his marks across the rest of this race if he hopes to stay ahead of Reynolds. The last lap, Reynolds was 1.3 seconds faster than Anthony Flores. He was 1.815 the last lap. Flores was 1.9.4. So this now is a tough task for Flores, but it's also a tough task for Reynolds. Less than 6 seconds is the gap. And with 10 minutes to go, all of a sudden it seems possible that Reynolds can catch Flores, but it still doesn't seem possible that he can catch Gonzalez at the front of the field, who's just entering turn 1.
There's not enough time to catch Gonzalez, not enough time for Stewart. It's very much pushing it for Nasir. I just don't think there's enough of a pace difference there. Let's see the times as they cross the line. 108.6 and a 108.0 coming across the line for Blake Reynolds. So Anthony Flores, 108.6, Blake Reynolds, 108.0. That is what I call pure pace. This is a driver on a mission. Blake Reynolds, you are the man with the plan, sending it around here. Honestly, it could still be a podium. It could possibly be, if only just.
It's 9.7. It's 9.7 to the podium. Realistically, for the podium to happen, Brad, he has to outlap Nasir and Flores by a second per lap, and that's to get them on the last lap. So this is it could be a podium. It's the realm of possibility. Mistakes can happen for Stewart, Nasir, or Gonzalez. I don't know, though. I'm hedging my bets, and I don't think he's going to make the podium, but he could make the back of Flores and battle him for P4.
It's one of those that it's on the tip of his tongue. And it demands that perfection, that drive. 107.9 last lap. I mean, where are the times coming from?
Low fuel. He hasn't had a pit stop, so he's low fuel. The tires will probably be screaming, but he is having to push hard to get up to Anthony Flores. So, I mean, low fuel in this car. Actually, no, he has had a pit stop. He came in on lap 1 to fix his car. So even with a pit stop on lap 1, which he took probably a little bit of fuel, has that given him enough just to push on and really get the most out of this car here, Brad? Because it seems like it has.
So to give you an idea, Last lap, Justin Nasir ran a 1:09.3 to a 1:07.9. I mean, you're just going to have to hold your breath to the end, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I have for you. This is a case of you won't know till Barney throws that checkered flag around. There's Flores. There's Reynolds. I mean, we've got a motor race on our hands.
There he is in the background. The yellow-eyed, purple-tailed machine of Reynolds chases down last season's AM champion, Anthony Flores. This will be the battle for P4. We've got just under 7 minutes to go in this race. Can Reynolds, first of all, catch him? He's got 4 seconds to gain to get up to Flores. And then can he pass him? And then the less likely option is, can he pass and then catch a further 4.5 seconds up to Justin Nasir?
If he wants to have the chance at P3 before, basically in the next 2 laps, he's got to get past Flores, and I don't see that happening.
I don't know. He'd
So,
have to lap him 2 seconds faster. Like, that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
it would be ridiculous, but again, if any mistakes come out anywhere, anything can happen here. It's not over till Barney throws that checkered flag through, and so we'll just have to kind of hold our breath and wait. I still think Reynolds P4 is a good bet. It's a good possibility.
Yeah.
But Flores, again, how wide is the back end of that Porsche? How wide is this track? Do you make those numbers match?
So 6 minutes to go. 6 minutes for Reynolds to get past Anthony Flores and get into P4 on the road. How willing is Reynolds to send it on Flores? The beauty of it is he'll be only losing 3 positions worth of points to Michael Gonzalez, which would have looked more like a Mount Everest size of points from where he was at the end of lap 1, right at the back of the field. So he's had a mammoth comeback. He's up 2 spots on the net gain, but relatively speaking, he's up 10 because he ended up P15 at the end of lap 1. So for Reynolds to get up 10 spots, Flores, to his credit, is up 9. Stewart's up 9 as well. So this has been a great gain for those drivers inside of the top 5. 5 minutes left to run. Gonzalez just has to push on and he should have the win in hand. Stewart, again, just needs to keep it clean and he has P2. Nasir, P3 on the road. Doesn't look to be under pressure from Blake Reynolds. And there is Anthony Flores and there is Reynolds. And the visual gain that Reynolds has had over Flores on the last lap, well, it's proven it on the timing tower. It's 2.2 seconds now, the gap. He gained around about 1.5 seconds the last lap. Oh, no, he gained a full second. He did a 1:07.89, fastest lap of the race. Flores did a 1:08.89, so he gained a whole second on Flores over that last lap.
That is absolutely ridiculous. And I also want to make sure we point out the battle in the AMs there with Carson Clint, Mofta, and Ebersol. Those 3 drivers are battling it out hard there. And for Clint, you know, it says he's down 6 places on the day, but on the feature, but you got to remember, reverse grid threw him up front. He's still running ahead of his class right now. So Quint's running very respectable here, and Mofta's up 4 places even on the reverse grid start, so still looking good. Ebersol's there as well, and Lynn up into P10 there, 4th place in class. You got to respect the AM drivers and the effort they've put in, especially for as much as they fought to hold off those pro drivers through these 40 minutes that we're at with just 4 minutes to go here. And, I mean, it's been a good run here. 1.1 seconds, Reynolds and Flores here.
Yeah, it's another second gain for Reynolds. Flores did a 1:09.0 last lap. Reynolds with a 1:07.9. So by the end of this lap, he should be hot on the heels of Anthony Flores, and it should be 3 or 2 minutes to go. So he'll roughly have 2 laps to get the job done on Anthony Flores. There can be no mistakes now from Blake Reynolds. And on the other side of the coin, there can be no mistakes from Flores if he wants to hold him off and stay in P4 on the road. It's less than a second. He's got the toe from Flores as they rocket down towards Dandenong Road. The pressure is going to be on Anthony Flores come turn 1 because Reynolds is going to be right on the tail lights of the Porsche 992. He is going to put the pressure on this thing as much as possible, and now it's game on for Reynolds and Flores with 2.5 minutes to go. Lap 38, and it's 0.4 of a second the gap.
This is where the driver proves themselves. This is the moment, and right now you can see Flores already defensive into turn 1. Reynolds, great run out of turn 1. Here we go through 2 and 3 they go. It's rear bumper to front bumper, looking a little bit wider through the entry for Reynolds. Flores going very defensive. Down the back straight we're going to go, and look at this. You can pretty much smell what someone had for breakfast with this close of a gap, this high of a speed. They're going to look, Reynolds looking to defend a little bit, and Flores is no choice but to kind of go side by side here into turn 6, the light left-hander here, and it's still going to be Flores ahead of Reynolds for the moment, but we've seen the hard break into turn 9. Does he go for it? He's going to go for it!
He ran it wide. He defended the line well there, Brad. He defended the inside run of Reynolds, but he ran it wide at turn 9. Side by side through 10 and 11. Door-to-door action. Reynolds gets it done. With 1 minute and 15 seconds on the clock, 2 laps to go, Reynolds just has to defend to Anthony Flores as best as he can. P4 is in his grasp, but Flores will be coming back at him at 1 down the inside. Can he hold the position? They touch nose to tail. So lucky not to get spun round for Reynolds. Your heart would absolutely break in a heartbeat moment if that had happened, because that would have undone everything Reynolds has done over the last 25 minutes of this race. Flores makes a mistake through 2 and 3 though, knocks the curb at turn 2. That ruined the run for 4. And now the battle, I think, is done and dusted because it's 1.1 seconds and Flores would have to find an immediate gain of pace to get it back onto Reynolds.
If Flores has kept anything in the tank, right now is the time to dump it here. As we see Michael Gonzalez, who has been just so comfortable up front here and just kind of running his own show. 7.2 seconds in the lead, has lapped up through P10 and is just going to go ahead and cruise around one more lap, just make it nice and perfect. And Gonzalez will nail a wonderful win here after a 40-lap feature race in 45 minutes. Timer officially over. This is our final lap.
So this would be the first double win for Michael Gonzalez in quite a few rounds. He's been on a bit of a poor run through Le Mans and through a couple of rounds before. So this would be a great net gain of points once again over Reynolds, but it's only 3 positions worth. He's still within the championship hunt, of course. I mean, 1 round to go, anything can happen at Road Atlanta. We saw Reynolds got spun round lap 1 of this race. If he hadn't have made up all those positions, it would have been a massive gain for Gonzalez and he would have been back in the championship lead. Through the final couple of corners, though, from Gonzalez, up towards the start-finish line. It's a double win for the Penguin RC driver. Another great chunk of points gained in the championship fight. Stewart's going to come home P2 and Justin Messier will come home P3 for the second race in a row. Blake Reynolds managed to get his way up 3 positions on the net gain, but 12 positions gained after ending up P15 at the end of lap 1 inside the top 4. Flores has dropped pace. He's under pressure from Ratu for his top 5 position. Running it wide at turn 12 is not going to help him. Can Ratu get it done? It's going to be a drag race to the line. Flores has only just gotten there ahead of Ratu by 0.07 of a second, Brad.
Flores absolutely gave that car everything against Reynolds and had nothing else to give, and Gonzalez showing what a GT3 car can do with a absolutely beautiful burn it down here. Let's pull up these final race results as our drivers cross the line, and man, that's a pretty picture.
It really is. We're just waiting on the final car to cross the line to get our provisional race results from race 2. We've just gotten them here now. So for race 2, it was Michael Gonzalez P1, Nate Stewart P2, Nasir in the top 3, Reynolds P4. You have to argue he would be driver of the day if we had it, Brad, because what a comeback from Reynolds. P15 at the end of lap 1 to P4 after 45 minutes of racing over the course of 25 minutes, or not even 25 minutes. No, yeah, it was 25 minutes. He gained 6 positions to the end of the race. That was incredible.
Legendary drive there from Reynolds. I mean, I have nothing else to say other than a mega legendary, probably drive of the season.
It was one of them, definitely. It was one of the drives of the season for sure. Flores inside the top 5. Nearly lost it to the Frenchman Roman Ratu, but he just got there by 0.07 of a second, 0.076 to be exact. Ratu P6. Quint gained some more points over Mofta in the championship fight for the AMs. He wins the AMs this evening in P7. Mofta P8, Ebersol P9, and then Jason Lynn inside the top 10. Brian Son, P11 on the road. Joshua Suxi and Josh Stultz for your top 13. Ray Kingsbury, Cody Cosgrove at the end of the race, with Paul Mikolajczyk only making the end of lap 1 and not finishing this race. So there are only 11 drivers technically on the lead lap at the end of this race here, Brad. But what a race it was, and we'll start our interview proceedings by having a chat to Carson Quinn in just a moment as we bring up some B-roll footage here from this race. But I am almost lost for words, honestly. I'm almost lost for words at the run from Reynolds in that race, but also just some incredible battling that we had around this track. I think it fully delivered on what I expected.
Yeah, Sandown is a track that needs to have the respect and love of a lot more people, especially after a race like that. This is a track that if you don't know it, you should, because it is absolutely delivering. And that was a mega race all the way around, especially considering that the run there for Flores all the way to the line by 0.08 of a second. That is ridiculous. After a 45-minute race, top 5 settled out by 0.08 of a second.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. But we'll start our proceedings by having a quick chat here to Carsten Quint. Mr. Quint, P7 on the road after P8 in race number 1, but 2 wins for the AMs this evening. A good solid chunk of points for you in this championship fight against Marwan Mofta. How are you feeling after that one? Because it was very intense for us in the comms box.
Oh, I'm definitely sweating. That was a crazy couple races.
Can we say now that you are a fan of Sandown after that race?
Oh, most definitely. That was the most fun I've had in a long time, I think.
It's a track that really tests your nerves, but also we mentioned on the broadcast, it really separates the boys from the men. What were some of the hardest challenges in learning this track this week and all throughout the race proceedings as well?
Oh, trying to figure out how much curb to take and which ones to avoid, because some of them really unsettle you and others you can just fly right over. So that was kind of interesting.
Well, how are you feeling going into next week? Of course, Road Atlanta, kind of a polar opposite to Sandown. You guys probably wouldn't have had many laps around here, where next week it's a track that's quite heavily featured in the GT process on iRacing. Are you feeling a bit more comfortable going into that round than you were into this one?
Definitely. Like you said, it's a track that we race a lot, so it's a good way to end the season at least.
Well, I think it's going to be an absolute cracker next week, Carsten. Let us know who helps get you and Solpec Precision Racing out on track. Anyone else you wish to give a shout out to as well, feel free to do so. For myself, Brad, the rest of the JP Broadcasting crew, congratulations on your AM class win and for continuing to grow your championship lead in the AM class over Marwan Mofta.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, just want to say thanks to all the guys at Solpac Precision Racing and our sponsors, Solpac, Abruzzi, and Precision Racing League. So been a good year so far. So hopefully it finishes well.
Well, Carsten, phenomenal job this evening. Best of luck next week at Road Atlanta. We look forward to seeing how you go. And hopefully you can try and lock out your championship win next week at Road Atlanta.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next up, we have got P3 on the road, Justin Nasir. Let's have a quick chat to him. Mr. Nasir, a long and lonely night for you, but P3 in both races garners you some phenomenal points. What's the thoughts and the processes going on in your mind after that one? Because it was a hell of a race for us, but you were on your own for quite a fair bit of it.
Yeah, I really did have a lonely night. In the sprint, it just worked out. I got away, and I mean, I drove horrible in the sprint, but I was so far gone from the guys behind me, and I couldn't catch the guys in front of me, so it was one of those things. In the actual race, it was quite physical to start the race. But once it got strung out, I really had a lonely night. I really didn't see many cars.
And how are you feeling coming into this race? Obviously, we kind of highly publicised tonight that it's probably a track you guys wouldn't have had many laps at before. What was your period of adjustment like coming into this track, of learning the track, learning the nuances, but also getting comfortable in the car around here as well?
Yeah, it was a very new experience for me. I've not driven anything around this track except maybe some like GT4s in a different game, but like iRacing wise, I don't think I've driven anything around this track except maybe like Porsche Cup. So it was a big adjustment. GT3s are way different, especially the McLaren. You can't really hit too many curves. Uh, and it's just one of those tracks. It's really on edge. But once you figure it out, it's not too bad. It flows well. It's just there was a big adjustment period. It probably took me 45 minutes to really adjust to it. And then once I kind of like adjusted, it was okay.
Well, how are you feeling next week going into Road Atlanta? Obviously, it's a track you would have had quite a few more laps at in a GT car, being the home of the Petit Le Mans. Are you feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident going into that race than what you may have been leading into this one?
Yeah, definitely. A track I know a lot better. Driven quite a few laps there in GT cars and all different types of cars. So, it's a track I'm familiar with. I feel good. I don't know how good our car is going to be because the Corvette should absolutely dominate in the S's and all the high speed stuff like turn 1. But I mean, we'll have a shot. The long straightaway is good for us. So, going into next week, you never know.
Well, Justin, a great job from you here tonight. Would you like to shout out your sponsors, or do you want to leave it to Gonzo when we chat to him about his win?
Yeah, I'll leave it to him, but I'll just say thank you to Penguin RC for having me on this season.
No worries at all. Well, thank you so much, Justin. Best of luck next week at Road Atlanta. Hopefully we get to have a chat to you after that race as well. And in case we don't, best of luck in any future racing endeavours as well, whether it's in Simcar or outside Simcar.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Nate Stewart. Mr. Stewart, only made your debut a couple of weeks ago, but you have been rocking and rolling on fire here in the Simcar GT3 Grand Am. How are you feeling after that one? You showed some great pace, but a mistake in race 1 at turn 4 cost you a lot of spots. It was a big comeback in both races to get you 9 positions gained in race 2 up to P2. What was it like battling throughout this field around this tight and short Sandown circuit?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the car just got loose under me in turn 4 in race 1, and then I spun out. Tried to get back to P8 to hit the invert. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and then it was interesting coming up through the field in the feature. It's quite a bit of contact, nothing intentional, obviously. Just Sandown's a very tight racetrack, and there wasn't a whole lot of room to go. And I mean, I feel like I was probably about the 3rd fastest car. Gonzo was faster than I was, and Blake was way faster in his Corvette. So, honestly, feel solid. I've been trying to do more road racing stuff as of late, since the NASCAR stuff is in the off season, and that's why I decided to come run Simcar the last couple weeks. And next week should be fun too at Road Atlanta, and I've already gotten permission to run the Acura next week, so that should be fun.
Oh, I wonder how many that's one thing I didn't think about, actually, the fact the Acura comes out next week. I wonder how many drivers in the field will actually be changing over to the NSX, because that could really change up the title based on if someone decides they want to change and they're not actually as comfortable in the Acura as what they are in their current car choice.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, but I mean, the points getting reset when you swap cars doesn't really matter for me, because I've only ran 2 races, so I figured, why not just try something new next week? It's fun, and yeah, Simcar's fun. Definitely need to run more of it, and hopefully my Thursdays are open next year to run more, because I'd really like to partake in more Simcar.
Well, Nate, you've had an incredible run over the last couple of rounds. Let us know if there's anyone out there that helps give you support to come racing, or anyone else you wish to give a shout out to as well. For myself and Brad and the rest of the JP Broadcasting crew, congratulations on your P2 here tonight in race 2. Commiserations for race 1 for the mistake at turn 4. But yeah, anyone else you want to give a shout out to, feel free.
Yeah, first off, thanks to you guys for broadcasting tonight. Thanks to the Simcar admins for putting this league on, and then my sponsors, SamBratMarket.com. They're a iRacing crafts company, make all sorts of things, and definitely need to go check out SamBratMarket.com. I wish I had a code to give out. I got to try to convince them to give me one. Apex Action Photography, that's me. I do iRacing photos, have for a while, worked with big name clients, and yeah, that's about all I got. I appreciate y'all taking the time to talk to me and have fun interviewing Gonzo.
No worries. We're going to chat to Mr. Reynolds first. We're going to make Gonzo sweat it out a little bit first. But best of luck next week at Road Atlanta. We look forward to seeing how you go. And if we don't get a chance to speak to you, best of luck in any other racing endeavors you have going into 2025.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds, we are deliberately making Gonzo sweat it out for a minute because we want to quickly chat to you about what was arguably the most ridiculous amount of positions gained in a single race across 45 minutes after being spun round on lap 1 on the back straights and ending up in P15 over 25 minutes at the midpoint of the race. You decided to turn the switch and find some lap time and gain about 25 seconds on the whole field. What was that like? Because this track is hard, it's tough, and it's one that not a lot of people have a lot of laps in if they're outside of Australia. I mean, what's your thoughts and how are you feeling?
Surprisingly, I'm feeling good. I feel fresh. I want to say I pushed it. I really didn't. The car, I was unhappy with the sprint race. I actually overfueled by quite a bit. The calculation I got was just completely wrong. I'm not really sure where I got that number. I was 6 gallons overfueled. So, unfortunate. But, then we get to the sprint race, and Gonzo got a good start, and I was like, okay, hopefully I have some long run. And then we got going, and yeah, I got spun by Paul. I think his wheel broke. That's unfortunate, but got going. Got my fast repair, and I just started ripping, man. I just clean track, kept my tires on it. It's all good. It's that easy. I got up on the wheel, and I didn't even really have to pass anyone really until the very end there with
Flores.
Anthony. Yeah, with Flores. Just car was great. Didn't even feel like I was in dirty air at all the whole time. I just picked my poison, passed when I could. Pretty easy.
Well, it's obviously it's a deceivingly technical track. It's one that you kind of got to hit your marks on every single lap if you want to cut those consistent lap times. One thing I noticed the whole field didn't do, and I'm surprised you weren't doing it actually, was no one was hugging the right-hand wall into turn 1 on the run-in. A lot of drivers who've raced a lot here will often run it as wide as possible, like across the pit exit alongside the wall and then cut in for turn 1. Did you guys not think of doing that, or did you try doing that, or was there anything that just was behind the thought process of just hanging it on the line instead of hanging it right on the wall?
Well, I mean, there's grass and a curb that's tall, and these cars, like, I'm already having problems, bottoming out on every curb. Basically, I had to raise the heights all of practice just to figure out when I was not gonna bottom out. Luckily, the fuel load at the very end came up enough, and I could just mount every curve I wanted. I finally popped into the 7s, I think, because of that. It's just because the fuel had come up and the car was higher in the air, and this car is already kind of on the ground. The side skirts are lower than the rest of the car, so it was just had great pace, good adjustments. As for turn 1, I kind of felt like it was straighter, and I didn't want to get in the ABS, so I hugged that line and just got as close to the curve as possible, but not hit it or extend out. I know what you mean. It's kind of similar to like Le Mans and the Ford chicane.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it was a little bit better in these GT cars where you have to watch out for the curves. I think in a supercar, you could probably hit that curb on entry.
I think it probably also comes down to this car can handle the corner a bit better because of the amount of downforce it has compared to a supercar. Like, you kind of have to ride the curbs in the supercar to get around these corners, where you want to avoid the curbs as much as possible in a GT, and the aero kind of makes up for that in a lot of the corners. So yeah, it's one of those little nuances of different cars. Maybe you take sort of different approaches to certain tracks. But let us know who helps get you and Solpec Precision Racing out on track, Blake. Anyone else just to give a shout out to as well. And just an incredible run home. Congratulations. And luckily for you, didn't give up too many points to Gonzo. And you just have to run a clean race next week at Road Atlanta, and you should have a second title in a row next to your name.
Yep. I'm planning on just finishing the race, both races. Solpec Precision Racing, of course. Abruzzi. Other sponsors, Channel 199, Sim Racing, I'm also on. Logo on the car. You guys for broadcasting, Penguin RC Simulation, for sponsor of the league, Simcar, of course, Too Fast Racing. And then the whole field for racing me clean, except for Paul, who intentionally crashed me.
Definitely. He did a Verstappen and just decided, I'm going to take you out and not get a penalty for it, for sure.
What an idiot.
I know. All right, Blake, best of luck next week for Road Atlanta. We look forward to seeing how you go in your championship charge against Michael Gonzalez.
All right, see y'all.
Thank you. Next up, we have our race winner here tonight, Michael Gonzalez. Gonzo, we thought we'd make you sweat it out for a minute and chat to your championship rival, Blake Reynolds, after he had an exceptional run up the field to get back up to P4. But you had an exceptional run yourself, sir, running up from P8 on the road to P1, making up quite a handful of positions in the first couple of laps and then trying to pick off Josh Stultz before taking the lead and building up your gap to around about 8 seconds. What was that race like for you, and how were the preparations and learning this track this past 2 weeks?
That race was pretty fun. I've put in quite a few laps around here just because we're still trying to figure out what makes this old Macca go fast. Overall, we probably found half a second in setup just here alone, so that's good. But it's still the issue of towards the end of the run, the thing just evens out at a certain time and doesn't go faster, but doesn't go slower. But everybody else goes quicker. So still trying to figure out what makes the car do its thing. But overall the race was pretty much straightforward. Just try and pick off as many spots as I could on the first lap and get to the lead as quick as possible because I knew Blake would be chasing. But yeah, even when he got wrecked, it was still kind of a distance battle just because I knew how fast that vet is compared to the old Macca after about half the race. So yeah, straightforward race and just have fun bouncing around the curbs.
So, how much did you have to pay Paul for the hit out on Reynolds on lap 1?
Signed an NDA for that one. He got nervous seeing Blake right behind him there, looking like he was lunging it. Just missed a corner and then pancaked the wall and knocked the right rear toe out. So from what I saw, it was like the wheel was sideways and it just wasn't could only go left. So
yeah, it didn't.
A little bit unfortunate on him.
Did not look very healthy off of 4, but a good race from you. Obviously, next week, Road Atlanta. I'm sure you got a lot of laps around there. Did you run the McLaren in the Petit Le Mans, so you at least actually have 10 hours of practice in this car at that track?
No, I did not run Petit. I did one race, McLaren in IMSA.
Okay.
It was IMSA fixed, and it was the worst thing I had ever driven in my life.
To be fair, it's fixed, so you don't get much better.
No, but it was exceptionally bad. No. Like it was a few corners that the other cars would go flat in, we had to lift. So that was always good. There's just one little minor no good. I will be missing next week.
Oh, really?
Yes. So Blake has locked the championship.
It's Reynolds' title.
It is title for Blake. But I will take P2. That works for me.
How dare you ruin our narrative for Road Atlanta?
I know. How dare I? Not the narrative. All the work put into this. It's a shame. I know.
So disappointing.
Things come at you fast.
That's right. We've had an incredible season thus far. Take some solace in that you did challenge him all the way to at least this round. So hopefully next season you can come back, have another crack at it. Are you going to change over to the Acura for next season, or are you going to try and hang it out with the McLaren once again?
No more Macca, that's for sure.
Okay.
Probably the Vet. I do enjoy the vet, so maybe we go to that. We'll see how the Acura is, though.
Oh, bit of a keep
Could be
your
great.
friends close, but your enemies closer sort of scenario.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, get some freedom out there on track. Well, Michael, you've had a great run this season, a great run tonight to take your final double win of the season. Then if you're missing next week, but we look forward to seeing how you go next season. If we're a part of that season once again, let us know. Helps get you and Penguin RC simulation out on track. We did ask Justin if he wanted to shout out the sponsors. He said we're going to put it on you, so you can blame him. But yeah, let us know. Helps get you guys out on track. Anyone else wish to give a shout out to as well? For myself, Brad, and the rest of the JP Broadcasting crew, congratulations on an incredible season thus far, and an incredible race here this evening across both the feature and the heat.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 2 wins is great. I mean, I want to thank everybody over at Penguin RC, Brian Son, for putting in all the effort on trying to get these setups cooking. And yeah, I mean, our only sponsor is Penguin RC, so maybe Lance didn't want to say it twice, but yes, thanks to Penguin RC. Then everybody at Simcar, and then of course you guys for doing the old broadcast here. I always love going back and watching it, seeing how some of these battles are playing out from the eyes of a little spectator.
Well, Gonzo, you are going to need some popcorn for this one, because just the run home from Reynolds alone up to Flores was absolute cinema. So yeah, it was a phenomenal set of races. But hope you enjoy the show when you watch it back. Thank you so much for coming over to chat to us. Enjoy December. Hope you have a happy holidays and a happy New Year as well. And hopefully we get to come back next season and call the action once again.
Absolutely. To you as well. See you in 2025.
Thanks, mate. You too. Well, Brad, how'd you feel about Penguin RC Simcar GT3 Grand Am for your first experience and getting thrown in at the deep end for Sandown?
That was an absolutely stellar race. I mean, you know, going into it, you look, it's like, okay, it's Sandown, it's GT3 cars. This is going to be, you know, nothing too wild. It's going to be a fun race, don't get me wrong, but nothing too wild. But that absolutely delivered. That was, I mean, an absolute stellar performance from everyone involved. And, you know, I don't have much more than that to say. It was amazing.
It was absolutely incredible. One of the best races, one of the best sets of races of the whole season. So we so appreciate everyone's time watching along with us. If you haven't already and you're new here, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe, and the bell icon as well, so you're notified whenever we broadcasting here on JP Broadcasting. So much racing happening on this channel across the week. You've got something different to watch every single day, so you do not want to miss any of it. We're going to give a shout out to the series sponsors, of course, Penguin RC for the title sponsorship of Simcar, and as well to Too Fast Racing as the larger network of communities for Penguin RC Simcar. For myself, Hamish, and Brad Dalton alongside, appreciate your time, appreciate you being here with us once again. We'll see you guys next week for Road Atlanta in the final round of the season. Blake Reynolds has got the championship, thanks to Michael Gonzalez walking away, but the AMs have still yet to be crowned as Quentin Mofta will go one-on-one for the title next week. But until then, stay safe, drive hard, and as always, bye for now.